So here we are, Tempest 4000 for the brand spanking new Atari box system. Oh boy, great to see this exclusive Atari box game on Steam. And it's also available for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So why in the blue hell would I want to get an Atari box now? So, in all seriousness, right off the bat, I need to shoot out a pet peeve that I have with Tempest 4000 on PC, and there's no mouse support. I tend to use the mouse to play PC-based ports of Tempest, whether it be from the old Microsoft Arcade compilation from the 90s, or something as recent as that Atari Vault compilation that you could get for about $10. The mouse is typically my go-to input device for any game on a PC that typically uses a knob-based paddle controller setup, since it probably comes closest to replicating that kind of precise control that a D-pad or even analog stick on a gamepad lacks. So the fact that I don't have this control option, as of this recording at least, somewhat irks me. So Tempest 4000 is a modern-day remake of the 1981 classic Atari arcade game Tempest. Tempest, for those who don't know, saw a remake in 1994 in the form of Tempest 2000 for the ill-fated Atari Jaguar system, and then Tempest 3000 came along for the short-lived Nuon system. And if you don't know what a Nuon is, then don't worry, because chances are neither does anybody else. And so now Tempest 4000 is coming along and graces Atari box when or if that system comes along, as well as the current gaming platforms of right now. And, well, shit, nothing good is going to come out of this one, is it, based on the series' previous track record? Oh well. Since Tempest 4000 gracing your platform of choice is likely the equivalent of feeding it cyanide, might as well give this one a further go and make a silly video out of it. So as is the case with all these subsequent Tempest remakes, Tempest 4000 retains the original Tempest gameplay of you controlling a claw device thing around a tube and shooting bad guys before they get you, and amplifies it with a variety of gimmicks such as power-ups. From old standbys like jumping and AI droids to new standbys like beautiful super laser things. Lots of acid trips, lots of techno beats of various flavors, loud noises, distracting pop-up text, and in a bit of a new addition, these tunnels that you play in between levels where you have to navigate through rings for bonus points. Oh goody, another goddamn game where I have to fly through rings. I feel tempted to reference that one N64 game starring a certain Man of Steel with something seemingly witty, but I'd rather save that for something else. Once you've picked your starting level, you'll move your claw ship thing around the edge of the tube, and you're tasked with killing all the critters before they can grab you, or shoot you, or kill you, or whatever. As per usual, you could collect power-ups to provide you with a variety of upgrades to help you out in your battle, and if you're in a bit of a jam, you could clear the board of baddies with your once per level Super Zapper weapon of mass devastation. In other words, if you've played one Tempest X1000 game, you've pretty much played Tempest 4000. There are some new things like new enemies and power-ups here and there. Some of the later tubes start changing shape to really screw with you. And then there's the explosion of colors and visuals and visual effects that, well, I'll be honest here, it started giving me a bit of a headache after a while, and it's probably the first time I could say that about a game and actually mean it. Because I've had to lay down after a brief play session, and that's kind of weird for me to have to do that with a game. Clearly, this is too much for my senses to take in, and I've played a lot worse with no issues, but I don't know, that's my experience at least. Others might not have that exact reaction. But that's the thing with Tempest 4000, aside from a couple of modes of play which change the way you play ever so slightly, it's the same classic Tempest gameplay with a lot of acid trips included into the mix. If you've played a Tempest game, you know what to expect, and if you haven't played a Tempest game before, then the gameplay might take a little getting used to since you're using a gamepad and not the rotary controls of the original game. Once you do, it can be a fun ride, and if you can't get into it, no harm, no foul, I suppose. It's not a game for everyone. Much like the previous iterations of Tempest X1000, 4000 comes at you with the vintage vector imagery atop a whole bunch of psychedelic visual imagery in the background, and lots of distracting effects such as pop-up text, waves, and stuff. Basically, if you played any Tempest of this ilk in the past, this should be familiar territory for you, and seeing this in marginally beautiful high definition should be a treat. For someone whose only exposure to this style of Tempest was a port on the PlayStation, this was a little overwhelming at times, and It's a lot to take in, but it follows what came before visually, does a fairly decent job of updating the assets to a higher definition, and finds new ways to induce the senses, or reduce them, or induce something. I don't know. Something. Yeah, that's it. Tempest 4000 retains the same soundtrack from the previous games, then there's a whole bunch of tunes to play with various variations and things of that nature. And that's okay, it's a catchy techno soundtrack playing with cool tunes that stand the test of time, if you like that sort of thing, that is. Sound effects are a combination of recycled 1980s arcade sounds, some special effect sounds, some sensual voiceovers, and the jumping sound effect from Pitfall, which I find to be completely brilliant. Okay, maybe not, but still, it sounds alright, I guess. Overall, Tempest 4000 is the same game you've played when it was called Tempest 2000 or 3000 or X3 or whatever. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it's a fun game to play. It's a fast-paced, hyperactive update to the Tempest arcade formula from ages ago, and on its own merits, it's certainly an experience. And perhaps best of all, you don't need a failed Atari system or an obscure entertainment system in order to play this one. Play it on your current consoles and personal computers right now. And then pray to God these things last a little while longer before they become complete and utter failures. But, in all seriousness, if you like the old Tempest, this is more of that. If you like old school arcade shooters, this certainly fits the bill. And if you want a game that doesn't give you a headache, well, this is not going to be the game for you, but hey, it's fun at least, so, yeah, that's it. I'm going to bed now. Good night.